Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into this week's edition of my top waiver wires and streamable defenses for Week 17 of this NFL season. This will be my last one of the year. I can't believe we are already in that Christmas time, the holiday time of the year. Hope you guys are playing. Obviously, if you're watching this week, you are playing in your championship game. So congratulations to you. Before I dive into my top waiver wire video, as I've said during this whole playoff run, not a big believer in picking up guys off the waivers to play this week unless you do need players at the position because you suffered injuries. And again, another reminder though, there are two Christmas games tomorrow. The first game is the Chiefs and Steelers at noon Eastern, and I believe the Ravens and Texans is at 3:30 Eastern. So if you guys are playing any of those players, make sure they're in your lineup. I definitely recommend not leaving them in your flex lineup, flex spot, so you can make any maneuvers if anybody does get ruled out this week for a injury. And then another thing too, I'm not going to talk about players that are going to be playing in the games tomorrow, but if you do put a waiver claim in for a guy that you're going to play tomorrow, I definitely recommend making sure you wake up in time, or you'll definitely wake up in time. The game's not until noon Eastern, but make sure you get those players in your lineup before that game does happen. With that being said, diving into my waiver wire targets of the week, as I've done all season, these players, they do have to have at least 50% roster availability. My quarterback out of the week, I'm going to go with Bryce Young. He's available in 93% of the leagues. This past weekend, he threw for 158 passing yards, had 2 touchdowns, and what I like is he did take advantage of his mobility. He had 5 rushes for 68 yards and a touchdown. Now, in Bryce Young's last 5 games, he has thrown for at least 215 passing yards. He actually has scored 2 touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 games. And then if you do want to stream him, or maybe if you're in a super flex league and you've been streaming a quarterback at your second spot, he does have a great matchup to take advantage of. He's going against a Buccaneers defense that are allowing the second most points per game against the quarterback position. And in that first matchup, when they faced the Bucs around 3 to 4 weeks ago, he threw for 298 yards and a touchdown. He also had 17 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground as well. My running back out of the week, I'm going to go with the lead running back for Los Angeles, Gus Edwards. He's available in 52% of the leagues right now. This past weekend, or actually this past Thursday night, he had 14 rushes for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 1 reception for 3 yards on 2 targets, touched the ball 15 times, which is your ideal amount of touches for any running back that you're going to play in your lineups. And he does have a good matchup if you do need to slide a running back into your lineup this week. He's going against the Patriots, who have allowed the 4th most points per game against running backs this year. This is 3 straight weeks I've had the same wide receiver out of the week, but I do like that rookie wide receiver for Tampa Bay, Jalen McMillan. He is available still in 55% of the leagues right now. This past Sunday night game, he had 5 receptions for 57 yards and a touchdown on 7 targets. Could have maybe had that touchdown if he was able to squeeze that ball in that the Cowboys end up picking off in that matchup. He has at least 6+ targets in the last 3 games. He has 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He does have a rough matchup, though. Not because Carolina's defense world beaters. They just allowed a lot of fantasy points to other positions. They are only actually tied for the 7th fewest allowed points per game against the wide receiver position. So McMillan's more of an ad if you do need wide receiver help this week, because he's been seeing those consistent targets in this passing attack. So yeah, if you need some wide receiver help, he's a name to look out for. My tight end out of the week, he was one of my top starts in my start sit video last week. So if you end up picking up and streaming him last week, he paid off for you guys. Chigakonkwo, he's available in 94% of the leagues right now. In that game against the Colts, he had 9 receptions for 81 yards on 11 targets. He's actually gotten 10+ targets over the last 2 games. You guys know me with tight ends. I like to look for targets that around that 7 to 9 range. If they get 7 to 9 targets, that's when I feel like you can trust him as a fantasy option. And the fact that he's gotten double-digit targets in the last 2 weeks is great. And he does have a good matchup this weekend going against a Jaguars defense that's tied for the 6th most points per game against the tight end. So if you've been streaming at the tight end position, Konkwo is not a bad option for you. My last guy, my flex out of the week, I am going to go with Amir Abdullah. the running back for Las Vegas. He's available in 77% of the leagues right now. This past weekend, he had 7 rushes for 38 yards and a touchdown, 5 receptions for 47 yards on 6 targets. So touched the ball 12 times, which is good enough if you would want to play him in your flex spot. In his last 5 games, in 3 of those games, he's touched the ball 10 times. Now, those 2 games he didn't touch the ball 2 times was when the rookie Sincere McCormick was taking over the backfield for Las Vegas. McCormick is on IR. His season's done, so you don't have to worry about that. He's basically splitting time with Alexander Madison at this point. And then he does have a good matchup if you wanted to roll the dice on him as a flex play this week. Going against the Saints, who are tied for the 3rd most allowed points per game against running backs this season. So he does have a good matchup for you to take advantage if you don't have great running back options heading into your championship game. One thing I forgot to say before, though, I dove into the waiver wire targets. I said this last week too. Now that you're in the championship game, if you're going to face a guy that's dealing with injuries, right, or doesn't have a great option at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end, and maybe he's loaded on wide receiver and you're loaded on wide receiver, you don't really need some of the wide receivers on your bench. You can always take away options and be cutthroat and go add say the guy needs a running back. He's going to maybe going after Gus Edwards. You can maybe go add a Gus Edwards. You're not going to play him, but you take Gus Edwards as an option to play against you this week. So that's something to keep in mind when you put your waiver claims in today. Moving into my streamable defenses, just like those players, these defenses, they do have to have at least 50% roster availability. My number 1 streaming defense, I like the Dolphins against the Browns. The Dolphins are available in 52% of the leagues. The Cleveland offense surprisingly did not get better with Dorian Thompson-Robinson as the new starting quarterback for Cleveland. And why I like this matchup is their sack potential and turnover potential. The Browns have allowed the most sacks in the NFL. So that can rack you up points if you stream the Dolphins defense. They have the 2nd most giveaways in the NFL, so all it takes is that fumble or a pick to return for a touchdown, which can give you a huge week. And also they have a low floor, gives you a high floor option as a streaming option because the Browns are only scoring 16.3 points per game this season, which is the 2nd fewest in the NFL. My number 2 streaming defense, I am going to go with the Colts against the Giants. The Colts are available in 52% of the leagues. Obviously, the Giants have one of the worst offensive units in the NFL this season. And then when you look at this, there's ways that the Colts can rack up points. First of all, the Colts have been really good as far as getting their hands on the ball. They are tied for the 4th most takeaways in the NFL. So they have proved themselves to be able to force some turnovers this season across the league. And then another way that you can get some points, the Giants are tied for the 4th most sacks allowed. So you can get your little points here and there as long as the Colts can rack up some sacks in that matchup. And what also gives them a high floor as a streaming option this week, Giants only score 14.3 points per game, which is easily the lowest in the NFL. So that gives you a high floor option too. My number 3 streaming defense, I am going to go with the Saints against the Raiders. The Saints are available in 58% of the leagues right now. The reason why I like this, this is a home game for New Orleans, so that gives them a more of an advantage as a defense. And then they're just facing an offense that's been a good streaming option to play against. First of all, Las Vegas is tied for the 3rd most sacks allowed, so that's a way you can get some points with the Saints defense. The Raiders also have the 3rd most giveaways in the NFL. So as you guys have, as I've said, with any time I bring up giveaways, all it takes is a fumble recovery or interception return to the end zone, and that gives you a big high ceiling potential with the Saints. And then what also gives them a floor as an option too is the Raiders are only scoring 17.6 points per game this year, which is the 4th fewest in the NFL. My number 4 streaming defense, I'm going to go with the Chargers against the Patriots. The Chargers are available in 56% of the leagues. This is actually the first game on Saturday, so that's something to keep in mind that you'd want to make sure they're in your lineup by Saturday. With that being said, this is more of a high floor option. Because the Patriots, they're tied for the 5th most sacks allowed. You got Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack for the Chargers that can get after Drake May, which can maybe potentially force some turnovers from the rookie. And then what also gives them a high floor is the Patriots are only scoring 17.3 points per game this season, which is the 3rd fewest in the league. Last defense, this is a high risk, high reward defense. This is more if you're in a 12-14 team league. Maybe you miss out on one of the top four defenses, or we're at the point of the playoffs too where anybody that's been knocked out is not dropping any defenses. So maybe some of the defenses I mentioned are not available in your league. If you wanted to shoot for a ceiling play, I do like the Jaguars against the Titans. Jaguars are available in 90% of the leagues. Again, this is a high risk, high ceiling play because the Titans are tied for the fifth most sacks allowed, so that you can register some points through some sack opportunities. And why I really like it is the Titans have given the ball away the most in the NFL, so there's potential for those fumble recoveries or interceptions returned for touchdowns, which gives you also a high ceiling play. So yeah, those are my top waiver wire targets in streamable defenses. Wish you guys all the best of luck in your championship game. If you have any players playing in those Christmas games tomorrow, I hope you get a great start to your week. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to my channel or followed me on all my social media platforms, please do. You can mainly find me on X. That's where I'm the most active. But I also got my YouTube channel. I'll post my clips of my videos on TikTok, and you can also find me on Instagram as well. Just a reminder, if you missed this from last week's video, normally you guys get my start sits on Wednesdays, with tomorrow being Christmas. I'm actually going to be doing my start sit video on Thursday. Now, since if you guys have not can tell from my normal background I had this season, I am at my parents' house for the holidays, so you won't be getting that like Thursday evening. You guys should be getting that sometime in probably around this same time that you're seeing this video posted, probably sometime in the early afternoon of Thursday. So stay tuned for that. I wish you guys the best of luck. Wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'll talk to you guys on Thursday. Peace out.